Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to talk about why the Universe 3 cards are obscenely broken. I know I'm not really saying anything too groundbreaking here. I know a lot of people already have this opinion, but I do want to talk about it, if not for the sake of just spreading awareness and talking about how the problem is actually getting worse, because even though Vegex has been a known thing for weeks and weeks and weeks now, the U3 problem is actually getting worse. I'm going to explain that in today's video, if not just to spread awareness. Maybe we'll be able to see it handled before we get back to paper tournaments, because, you know, I think since we're not doing paper tournaments right now due to everything going on in the world, I think we might not be noticing the effects of U3 as much, and maybe as like a community as a whole. So maybe pointing out some of these problems, we can get this issue squared away. But guys, before we do that, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. I've got a ton of links in the information card and in the description down below where you can help the channel out. Patreon, merch store, Gemmy app, where you can sponsor your own video, get some one-on-one coaching sessions. Make sure to check those out if you are interested. That being said, let's get started. So the cards we're talking about, you guys should all know them by now. Nagrishi from the Shadows and VR Everlasting. When people talk about the Universe 3 cards, they're mostly talking about these two cards, even though there are a few other U3s, which we will talk about in this video. But these two are the most problematic just for their splash ability. At the 3-drop and 4-drop level, there are just so many generic black cards you can play in a lot of different decks, which is one of the reasons why the problem is spreading, like I mentioned. And with that being the case, you're getting free aggression. Now, in Dragon Ball Super, the way the game works, it does pretty much reward you for being aggressive. There are a lot of times where your opponents at that 4 life, you start attacking them, they're gonna start wasting cards to not take damage, and that's kind of how you get rewarded for being aggressive, even if you're not playing an aggressive deck. Now, keeping that in mind, when you play a deck that has free aggression like VR and Nagrishi, because you're never paying 3 energy for these cards, you're always playing them for free via their own abilities, their activate mains, choose a black battle card with energy cost equal to their energy cost, send it to the warp, play it from the drop area. These things do have minor erratas, but for the sake of this video, they don't really matter, so keep that in mind. But that being said, when you already benefited for being aggressive in this game, yeah, control exists, yeah, mid-range exists, yeah, turtle decks exist, but with that being said, you definitely are rewarded for being aggressive in the correct scenarios. And when you have free aggression like this, it can definitely be very, very degenerate. I think free play in most games in general, especially Dragon Ball Super, I think it's pretty degenerate in general, but I think when it's more towards free defense, I think it tends to be a little bit more okay, because it's a little bit harder to come by value defense in the game at the moment. But when you do have free aggression, it can get a little bit degenerate, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I always bring up the Storm example. I've done many videos covering Storm. I've even done a few videos explaining how Storm was kind of the bar, if you will, for what a free aggro deck looks like. I mean, you have Bardock for 1 energy. For 0 energy, you swap into Goten. So for 1 energy, that's 2 attacks. Goten gets you another card. Bardock got you a life, so that got you 2 cards there. And then with the Goten, if you find or just combo with Annealing Spirit Trunks, you know, of course, before all these cards were banned, you would basically get free aggression there, because after you use Annealing Spirit Trunks, you basically did that play for 0 energy. Now, basically comparing that to the U3 cards, it's the same thing, free aggression and not having to pay energy for it. You know, the U3 cards have their own benefits. You know, one has 15k power, so that threatens Awakened Leaders, unlike Bardock or Goten on their own. And then VR is 20k, so that threatens even more and has critical. Now, when you compare those cards to Turles and Unstoppable Ghost Warriors, obviously they were played in a lot of the same decks, and Turles was preemptively banned at the start of, you know, the set 10 spoilers for pretty much the same reason. Free aggression is pretty degenerate. Now, I think Bandai did this preemptive hit pretty much to try and balance mono black aggro, because as we know, mono black aggro is and has become a very, very dominant force in the game. I mean, even back with mono black Demigra aggro, before it was really top of the meta, it was still very, very good, at least at a rogue level, maybe tier 2 status. But they did ban Turles to put in check Demigra aggro, to put in check mono black Boo, and probably to preemptively check Vegex. And why do they do that? Well, Turles gets played for free, has dual attack, he threatens Unawakened Leaders, so, you know, turn 1 uninteractable damage, basically, because if you are going to combo to defend against Turles, you know, they might not be successfully being aggressive against you, but in a sense, they're successfully hand controlling you, because you have to combo to not take those attacks because you feel so threatened by his dual attack. And then you discard a card, he gains plus 5k for the turn. Most cases, you are discarding that Nagrishi in order to play him for free after using up the Turles. So in that case, you're basically getting 3 attacks for 1 card. Pretty ridiculous there. But they decided to hit Turles, and they did not preemptively hit the Universe 3 cards. Now we're running into some problems. Obviously, the deck that everyone knows these cards are broken for is definitely Vegex. Vegex, you mill 5, you hope to mill either your Time Agent Trunks, Time Agent Vegeta, or your Time Agent Supreme Kai of Time. But when you mill the Trunks, for example, you can play the Nagrishi. There are a number of 4-drops in the Vegex deck. SS3 Tag Team Gohan. You have the Splintering Mine, Black Mass Sand. Those tag out for your Viara. So basically, all those cards are already free or incredibly cheap. Now, paired with Universe 3 cards, they're what we call extenders. Basically, cards that allow you to keep comboing off, keep attacking, keep going in your turn, and they don't cost you any energy to do so. You know, it'd be a different story if your extenders costed energy, maybe even 1 or 2 energy, but when they cost 0, there's absolutely no downside to using them, to playing them in your decks, and it gets a little bit out of hand, especially like I mentioned before with the free aggression. You know, let's say the Universe 3 cards didn't exist and you have all the free play cards that Vegex has. Again, the Vegeta, the Trunks, and the Supreme Kai of Time. In a vacuum, they're not really that bad, because when you look at the face of it, you have Vegeta. He can be pretty aggressive because he has a 19k, but then you have Trunks, who's really just a free play blocker, helps yourself awaken. He's not aggressive on his own. The Supreme Kai of Time as well, not aggressive on her own. She does give you a big combo when you have a low hand, but that's kind of made balanced by the fact that you have to have a low hand to start with to use that. But when you add the U3 cards, that's what makes things a little bit too degenerate. But now I think the main problem is that we're seeing the evolution of the Universe 3 problem is that it's coming to other decks, specifically non-mono black decks. I mean, I think definitely at the conception of these cards, they were meant to be used in mono black strategies. They were meant to be used in more mono black aggressive decks, but it's kind of making it messy now that we are able to see these cards be used in a deck like Gohan Burn. You know, in a deck like Gohan Burn and in a deck like Yamcha, where you have burst, you can get these cards to the drop area. And now that it's been ruled that Bardock the Resolute can be played off of regular damage, I mean, yeah, you have Yamcha, where you can literally look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add a red card. Oh, cool, I saw a Universe 3. I can dump it to the drop area. Like I mentioned before, there are so many generic cards you can play alongside Universe 3 cards. Obviously, in this deck, for example, you have Bardock the Resolute. He's your free 15k double striker. You play him off of doing regular damage or off of doing damage with Gohan's effect. You attack with him for a double strike, tag him out for a Nagrishi, swing with that again. So that's pretty much free aggression. Again, 0 energy aggression that, you know, between the leader dealing 2 damage, Bardock dealing 2 damage, and the Nagrishi going in for a 5th damage. You have another energy for a Saiyankaba. The Nagrishi just makes it a little bit too crazy in terms of how much aggressive power you can push. Maybe Bardock on its own was an issue. Maybe that was a problem of them printing it. That is definitely possible. I'll definitely concede that point. But Nagrishi definitely is one of the cards that puts it over the top. Like I mentioned before, the other generic cards you can play, you have the Bardock Awakened Instincts Overwhelm that pretty much any deck can play. You play that card, discard Viara, because Bardock himself does discard a card. Then you play that Viara from the drop area after swinging with the Bardock. That is, again, 0 energy, 2 attacks, one of which is a critical. If we move along, we have Dredge Goku. He has at his disposal Son Goku Power of Legend, that is very own 3-drop 15k free black battle card. When you make your opponent discard a card, you play him. He's a 15k crit, swing with him, tag him out for Nagrishi, and there you go. That's what I'm talking about when I say the U3 problem is evolving. Now it's seeing a lot of play in other decks. I don't think this is necessarily meant to happen, but the timing of this stuff was all pretty poor on Bandai's part. I do have to, you know, label that when I see it, because these cards came out in Draft Box 5. Now the next set later, you're printing very generic black cards that work with the Universe 3 stuff. That is pretty problematic in my opinion. You know, and the same thing in this deck. You play the SS3 Tag Team Trunks because, you know, any of your black cards leaving the board, you can literally activate Nagrishi, and then your black cards left the board by a skill. Then you play SS3 Tag Team Trunks, and then you can tag him out for Viara. That's a little bit too much synergy and a little bit too splashable. Now that we're seeing that happen in Red Gohan and in a deck like Dredge Goku. And what's really interesting is that over the course of last weekend at a Core TCG tournament, that Red Gohan deck actually won the event, which is pretty crazy to think about. You know, some people would definitely consider that leader more rogue, and I would definitely agree with you before this whole thing came about. But now that this combo is known, that deck's actually very degenerate in terms of aggro. So I do want to make that point there. Next up, there are other Universe 3 cards in the game, of course, and are they problematic? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Secret Technique Pepperoni, a card that really no one looks at in my opinion, but it's literally the same exact thing as Nagrishi and Viara, just for 2 drops. Now, I will say, on the face of it, there aren't too many 2 drops that make this card very, very abusable. I think you can use this card in a deck like Demigra because he naturally free plays 2-drop poutines from the deck, but this new Toa coming out in the tournament pack for set 10 is actually very, very interesting and abusable with this Pepperoni, who is a 15k, mind you, so that's threatening Awakened Leaders. Toa says, Overwhelm 2, auto when you play her, choose 1 card in your hand and discard it. When this card's played using Overwhelm, draw 1 card, then choose one of your black battle cards, and it gets plus 5,000 power for the turn. So basically, you Overwhelm her out, you discard this Paparoni, which pretty much sets you up exactly like the Bardock does, like I talked about before. Make this a 20k if you don't have any other black battle cards to boost. Swing with this, tag out for Paparoni. Again, free aggression. Not really something we want to see there. Anilaza Towering Atrocity, I think, is a different story because he comes out much later in the game. I mean, generally, you're not seeing black 5-drops come out that early. I mean, the main combo with this card is using the Hatchiyack 5-drop, which you can play for 3 energy. But at that point, the game has progressed at a decent pace where, you know, playing a 5-drop single striker and then a 5-drop double striker on turn 3, yeah, it sounds pretty crazy, but it's not really the craziest thing we've seen in the game. And I don't think they'll hit Anilaza because he is an SR. He does have a pretty nice price tag. Now, I'm not saying the secondary market has to or should influence Bandai's decision. I just don't think they would hit him because of that fact, and because I think later on in the game it is a little bit more acceptable to see Anilaza come out. It actually costs you energy to play him for the most part. There's no free 5-drop Overwhelm that's seeing a lot of play that synergizes that well with Anilaza. But these 0-cost aggressive plays like Paparoni, Nigrishi, Viara, definitely problematic. Now, I think from this point on, there's really 2 ways they can go about it. They can either, you know, ban Nigrishi, Viara, and Paparoni outright. I think that would be the cleanest way to do it. Or going on in the future, they're going to have to build and create black cards to go around the Universe 3 stuff. They'll make these new cards in mind with Universe 3 being a thing. And honestly, from the looks of it, with Power of Legend and Bardock the Resolute, they didn't seem to do that in set 10, which is a little bit unfortunate. So I really think Universe 3 stuff has to go, at least if Viara, Nigrishi, and Paparoni. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Definitely drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I'll see you guys next time.